Bird's Eye View.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Bird's Eye View. Happy to have you back. I have a very interesting guest today. Very excited to have him on board. We're going to get an opportunity to look at life as we know it right now from a medical perspective. On a personal note, just to quickly touch on that, obviously, we're in the summer now. Things are a little bit better. Been able to get outside on the bike, go for some jogs, do things that, when we were cooped up was a little bit difficult to get. Managed to turn 4 shades of orange, and I'm pretty proud of the fact that I've got a little bit of color now. But maybe somebody who can actually bring some light onto that, somebody who's deep in the trenches of the front lines, is a good friend of mine, a fellow cyclist, and an emergency physician, group director at Mackenzie Health, chronic pain specialist, owner of an urgent care center. And again, not just a cyclist like me, but a semi-professional cyclist. I'd like to introduce Paul Perlon to the show. Paul Perlon, thanks for coming.
Thank you, Kyle. Thanks for the great introduction.
I keep adding to your accolades. Every time I introduce you to somebody, I'm going to need a book to remember all these things that you are at.
I'll remind you of everything. Don't worry.
All right. Yeah, I'm sure you will. How are things going? How, just in general, how's life?
Good. Thanks. It's been, times are definitely different now. Now with the weather getting a little warmer, it's getting a little more pleasant, spending a little bit more time outside. The volumes are in our emergency department are definitely starting to come up. Less of the COVID patients, but our volumes came from a low of about 140 patients a day. We're up to about 260 per day. And come July, we're going to be going back to our regular roster of.
Oh, wow. So it's interesting. I wanted to ask you, and you know what, before I even ask, let me just acknowledge on behalf of myself and my family and everybody at Skylar, thank you. Thank you to you. Thank you to everybody that you work with, all of the frontline workers. I mean, whether it's somebody even outside of the medical profession, but obviously, you guys are in the mix every day, and I'd be remiss if I didn't thank you for what you're doing.
Our pleasure. Thank you for acknowledging us.
That being said, I guess, talking about getting back to your normal levels, I guess to a certain extent, you almost look at that as a positive, because it means, things are getting back to normal to a certain degree. I mean, I guess people are coming in with broken legs and the things that you would typically expect at an ER. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly it. So initially, people were really afraid to come in, and they were delaying their presentations, and they were delaying presentations of really bad illness. And there were situations where people delayed to a point where their outcomes were affected. Now we're slowly getting back into the mix of things. People are becoming more brave. They're coming in legitimately when they're supposed to. But also, we're seeing a few more sports-related injuries, not team sports yet, but individual sports. Also, we're hopefully going to open up elective surgeries, so the cancer surgeries, the orthopedic surgeries, those are going to be happening relatively soon. We're very hopeful.
Nice. You and I have spoken a little bit about this, but I thought it would be great for our audience to hear it. Comparing SARS and COVID, obviously communication changes between not just you and the patient, but even you and your own staff. Can you compare the two and maybe what's going on right now as far as how it is working on the front lines like that?
Even though it's essentially, it's a similar virus, they're both coronaviruses. The SARS pandemic in 2003 is much different from 2020, what we're seeing now with COVID-19. The way they are different, I still remember, because I was on the front line in 2003. It was actually my cases that we saw 2 very sick nurses, and right away we knew that in our hospital we do have confirmed SARS-1. And from that point on, from March 29th of 2003 until July 31st of 2003, so 4 months, our hospital was completely shut down. The only patients we were seeing were our own staff. And we would have one physician who works a 24-hour shift. What we're seeing now is very different, because we're actually seeing volume, but now we've learned what personal protective equipment is, and we know how to don and doff it, so we know how to put it on and take it off. And we know the precautions that patients are supposed to see. We isolate these patients in our triage area and bring them into a certain zone where we are treating patients that are potential risks of COVID-19. It's a very different illness, but at the same time, as I mentioned, we have to wear this protective gear. So we have to wear a gown, we have to wear gloves, we have to wear a face mask and a face shield. And because of that, the interaction between us and the patients and us and the nurses is very different.
Right.
We have to reassure somebody that they're going to be fine. And if you're wearing gear, if you're wearing a mask, it makes that sort of non-verbal communication very difficult.
Right. On a related note, but it was in the news obviously last week and a little bit the week before, but about, what's happening in Toronto with aggregating in parks, like what happened at Trinity Bellwoods. And what's your perspective on that? Is that like shameless selfishness? And these people just, they don't care, and that's why we're going to get a second wave? I don't know. Are you somewhere in the middle?
So I'll tell you, Kyle, I mean, the second wave to me, maybe it's a controversial view in my opinion. I think it might be a pessimistic view. I'll be honest with you. Everyone's saying there will be a second wave, but so far, really, nowhere in the world has there been a second wave. We'll see what happens in Australia and New Zealand, because those are Southern Hemisphere countries. Those are places that are going through their winter now. So we'll have to see what's going to happen there.
And that was it, right? Like people are almost expecting it to kind of coincide with the flu season. And they're going to be experiencing the flu season now. So we'll find out if it's actually a thing or not, right?
Correct. With regards to what happened at Trinity Bellwoods, that was obviously, it was a terrible situation. But look, you confine people, you coop people up, and people have to get out. Maybe not in such large crowds, and the police obviously weren't there to help out. There were people urinating on sides of buildings and so on because they closed the bathrooms. Look, I don't condone what happened. But at the same time, you can't confine people for such a prolonged period of time.
Yeah, I mean, we're human. I mean, you and I, we know we like getting outside. We like doing stuff, whether it's tennis or cycling or basketball, whatever it may be. I mean, we just enjoy doing stuff. So you can almost just, empathize with these people that, you know what, to hell with it. I need to get outside. That said, it almost makes you feel like all the other work that we're doing, like you wonder if that's putting at risk that the work that everybody's doing, or even that those people themselves are doing the rest of the week. They're throwing it all away on the weekend. What I wanted to get to with that is, look at Skylar, for example, and obviously we're not Google and we're not Facebook. Our plan right now, which is of course subject to change, is that we're going to take a pretty tempered, measured approach to getting back into the office that will probably work the rest of a better part of the summer like we are, which is working from home. I'm not really in any urgency. I'm not a restaurant that needs to have people back in necessarily. And then, kind of play out the rest of the year and see where it goes. Maybe stagger it back and bring a few people at a time, and then a few more, and then a few more until maybe 2021, where we have an entire roster back. If you were my medical advisor, and I think in many ways you act as that unofficially, what would your opinion be on that philosophy, or I guess that approach to returning to the office?
I think you could be a little more aggressive. I'll be honest with you, depending on what you really need with regards to your business. Look, I think we do need to get back to normal. I really do believe it. I think, look, things are like, we're doing massive amounts of testing, 17,000 tests per day. We're doing those numbers in the province. The numbers of deaths are coming down. Fine, there's maybe the numbers of cases are steady, but the number of deaths are coming down, and even the number of cases is coming down.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, it's just, what am I sacrificing one way or the other? And if we do have some people who might be with people who have compromised health situations and stuff like that. So I'm a little more open to saying, you know what, as long as we stay productive working from home, why rush it?
If they can do the same thing from home that they would do by actually coming in, then fine. But I think at some point we do need to try to get back.
Yeah, and we can't be terrified of going places, right? So, for example, your own clinics, you haven't been able yet to open. That's what you're getting at. You're alluding to the fact that you need to get customers back in the door. I mean, that's the only way to keep it alive. I mean, and you have people to treat. I mean, it's not insignificant, the work that you do, right?
Right, correct. So my clinic situations is a little different. My chronic pain clinics, they've been open throughout because it's an essential service. People are in pain, and they haven't been missing their appointment. They've shown up without fail. The urgent care centers, that's been a little bit different. So those numbers have gone down tremendously. We've done a lot of telephone triage, but at the same time, you need to actually put your hand on a patient's belly. You need to be able to see what's going on. And that's kind of stopped right now. We're lucky in our family practice center that a lot of the family doctors are rostered. So in other words, our clinic is getting paid and the family doctors are getting paid regardless of actual volumes. If you were in a true fee-for-service situation, so the physician gets paid for every patient that they see, that's a huge problem.
Right. Obviously, we have a marketing angle to Bird's Eye View because that's what we do. I mean, from a marketing or advertising standpoint. And, you don't do a lot of marketing necessarily. I mean, a lot of your business comes from referrals or whatever it may be. But I guess, is there any aspect of the marketing or advertising world that you might do differently moving forward, given what's going on now, or no?
Probably not, Kyle. I mean, there's such a shortage of family physicians, such a shortage of pain specialists. We have about a 2-year wait list.
Wow.
So we've slowly started to open that up. So I think starting next week, I'm going to start seeing patients off of the wait list, brand new patients. I look at some of the other models, like some of the other countries, they opened up hairdressers early. They opened up massage therapy, chiropractic management, rehab. Like, you want to get people back to work. To do that, you have to be able to, to improve their overall physical condition. Luckily, next week, our physiotherapists are going to be restarting.
And I think dentists as well get to open again for the first time to more emergency. Yeah. Would you agree that for businesses like that, or for being a dentist, or for, even the pain therapy that you were talking about, acupuncture and otherwise, where you do have that actual intimate physical touching, that at this point now, as long as the proper precautions are in place, we're probably not doing that much that would really damage the risk or increase the risk as opposed to the reward that would be getting them back in business?
Absolutely. Look, you shouldn't work if you're sick. That is with COVID, without COVID, at any time, you should not work if you're sick, period. I think these guys need to get back to work. I mean, I think it needs to happen. I think society needs to allow that to happen.
So let me ask you this then. Why aren't they? Well, what's your thought on that?
I think there's a lot of fear out there. I mean, I think we're a different society than the US for sure. I mean, I don't want to be in the US right now either. Definitely not. But you look at places like Florida, like Georgia, they're doing not too bad. I'm looking at Europe opening up. It needs to happen. We need to be... Right. I think this virus isn't going to come back this summer. I mean, I think we need to be a little more proactive.
I mean, you and I are obviously big Raptors fans. I'm a big Leafs fan. But yeah, I mean, there's so much of the social aspect of life that's been removed. And I mean, we're literally relying on calls like this, or now at least, I mean, I guess we can get out and we can cycle together a little bit in smaller groups, or just, a couple of us anyways, try to be responsible. But holy geez, you really think about the fact that, they've canceled some of the most significant things that we have in this city, but really around the world. And I get it that they may look at that as far as being a breeding ground for this, but at the same time, what's the collateral damage to that as far as people going out of business and then not being able to survive because of either mental, anxiety or health issues around that, or just from an economic standpoint, not being able to survive because they have no money.
I'm lucky, you're lucky, I'm able to go to work. There's a lot of people who are non-essential services that can't work, like your brother-in-law, he can't cut hair. I mean, and the thing is, the longer you keep someone in their home, the more afraid they'll be to leave the house. The thing I've seen is I've seen a lot more psychiatric patients, a lot more domestic abuse, both partners as well as kids. Kids need to be able to play with other kids. Yeah. It's so important.
It kind of leads us further down that personal side of things. But you have 3 kids at home. They vary in age. They're doing well, I'm assuming. I know that Jacob keeps kicking your ass at ping pong, even though you have 30 years on him or so, right? So.
I've been practicing. I can't beat him.
Now I'm ready to kick your ass in ping pong.
It's terrible, but he kicks your ass too, right?
Yeah, he has kicked my ass in the past. So I guess, but only once, not multiple times. But everybody's doing well. Everybody's,
Yeah. So my daughter Danielle, she's graduated high school, so she's one of the members of the class of 2020, the infamous class. So she's going to university next year. There's a lot of uncertainty about that. She got into U of T for health sci. My other daughter is going to have her Sweet 16 also on Sunday. It's been, I think, toughest for the little guy. His friends come over, but at a distance. They can't even play basketball. They can't touch the same ball,
I mean, listen, it's shitty for everybody to a certain
Yeah.
extent, but I think it's the kids that you really look at it's the kids and actually the older people. I don't know how you feel, but like I see even my parents and their inability to, all they want to do, they want to hug my daughter or their other grandkids, whatever it may be. And actually vice versa, I mean, try telling a 2-year-old or even an 11-year-old that, no, you can't hug your grandmother. You can't do this. I mean, those are heartbreaking scenarios. Again, we remember why we're doing it. You're trying to do the best that we can, do what we're told, but there's certainly part of it that just breaks my heart.
It's terrible. Yeah, it's definitely terrible from my parents as well. We've flattened the curve, really. We have. I wouldn't say we overreacted. We didn't know what we were getting into, but we're currently holding 10 patients. We have 10 vented patients. We're prepared for 74. So, and that's everywhere throughout the city.
Right.
So it's obviously always better to be prepared, but I think we're not going to be using those 74 ventilators. It's not going to happen.
Right.
There's no chance that's going to happen.
One of the questions that I wanted to ask you, I guess, just try to be the last thing that I ask you, it's kind of COVID related, but there's so many conspiracy theories out there. But I mean, is there any validity to any of the fact that, Fauci and his, and Bill Gates and some of them are, this was an intentionally created virus or it's not even a virus at all. And this is all some part of a master plan to get rid of cash and control us by drugging us with the vaccine and tracking us for the rest of our lives, no matter where we go. But,
no, I don't buy any of that stuff. I mean, it's a virus. I mean, how it happened, I don't know. It came somewhere out of China. We don't really know. I don't buy those conspiracy theories. I mean, Fauci says that this virus, the virus is really the boss of this whole thing. The virus is in control. The virus tells us what to do. And I think, like SARS before, in March of 2003, it disappeared and it never came back. I think the same thing's going to happen here.
right.
I'm not convinced that there will be second waves.
Right. I've been asking people as I talk to them if they have any funny stories that have happened around COVID. I mean, obviously we're in a pretty unique situation. Obviously, we already talked about, your 11-year-old Jacob kicking your ass multiple times at ping pong. But anything else happened at home or outside of home that you want to share with us?
Well, first of all, Chloe tried. My middle daughter tried to cut my hair, and I looked like Jim Carrey from Dumb and Dumber. It was ridiculous. I had to go to work like this. Luckily, I was able to wear a cap and so on. I let her continue and I let her finish. But the other thing is, we had a family of geese here. It was a mother, father, and 5 little ducklings, and they spent overnight here. They were in the pool having just a great time. And then finally, my wife yelled. She had enough. She goes, "Okay, you got to get these guys out of here." So I got out in full gear, pots and pans in hand, all of us in like camouflage stuff. We walked out, started banging these pots and pans, and finally, these geese took off. But it was a full night.
I know they're pretty stubborn. I know even trying to get them away from, just to get them to shoo away a little bit, they won't even move. They won't budge.
They set up camp. They were fully comfortable. No, and then I had to clean up all their poop. It was literally 24 hours of poop.
Oh, the things that you've seen at work, and now you get to see them at home, I guess. Eh?
It's endless.
And I wanted to congratulate you as well with your daughters on graduating and being accepted to U of T, of course, and on the Sweet 16. I think that obviously these milestones not being able to be celebrated properly, but hopefully we can get around to doing it properly, and hugging each other and drinking and cheersing and doing things like the way we're used to doing.
Exactly.
I look forward to seeing you, whether that's cycling, obviously from a few feet away or otherwise. I look forward to getting back to things as normal. But again, thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for your candid thoughts and opinions and feedback on what we talked about today. And stay safe, my man. I love you, and I hope to see you soon. Cheers.
Thanks, buddy. Thank you. Cheers. Thanks.
I think that we probably learned quite a few things there. I think that Paul obviously brought a very unique perspective, very interesting ideas to the table as far as what it will take to get back to normal, whatever that takes, and maybe what could be reasonably done right now. I know that from our own perspective, again, we have the ability to pick and choose, I guess, when we fully go back to the office. But I know that others and people close to me can't. And so I hope that more people take Paul's mindset, and we, while we're still careful and while we're still thoughtful about what we're doing and why we're doing it, that we think about the bigger picture and the mental health of the people and the variety of other things that may serve as collateral damage as this goes on. So I hope everybody out there stays safe. I hope you stay well. I hope you're able to enjoy the weather. And if you go to Trinity Bellwoods, make sure you stay inside the circle that they painted for you. Okay. Cheers. Thank you for watching Bird's Eye View, and we'll see you next time.
Bird's Eye View.